Good evening. You have tuned into Ties That Bind. And today we are going over spirituality, African spirituality. And James is going to be the spearhead of it. And this is your host, Paula, and my co-host, James and Tiffany. We're going to go over this with you. James is we call him the spearhead of this. He knows more about it than we do. But we have been in this religious thing and been studying and figuring out what it is that we're missing, because there's something obviously we're missing, and we want to get outside of religion. We want to get to spirituality, meaning between me, you, and God. Between us, we're straight to God, and then from what we get from God, we share it with one another. So we're going to start with, I've already spoken and said my name is Paula, and we're glad to see you today, and I'm going to go from there to Tiffany.
Good evening, family. This is Tiffany. I'm coming to you to try and bring some building blocks so that we can help heal our family and also branch that healing out to the community at large.
And then from there, James.
Hello, family. What's going on? I'm James. I'm pretty much the bridge in this whole thing. I'm trying to really bridge the gap between the old, the young, people that have been here for a while, the knowledgeable, the unknowledgeable. So we kind of figure out how things work. And I know that in this life we are taught many things, but I challenge you to find what matters the most, and that is Gnosis. Know your past so you can operate in the present to secure the future that you always dreamed of.
Yes. So we're gonna start by saying that this is we're not religion. This is not going against religion. We're going from a place that we feel that religion has taken things out, and we're from our opinions that we have studied. We've been studying this for years, and we know that there are things that are missing. And so this is one of the parts, and we have many pieces, and that's why God tells us to study to show us ourselves approval, a workman worthy unto God, and that's some serious working. So we've started sharing this with other people because we feel like this is our calling to do what we can do, as James says, like to bridge the gap that we're missing here. And we do encourage you, and we'll give you chapter and verse and everything in between, and let you know where we got this information so you can study it for yourself. And so I'm going to turn this over to our host tonight over this topic, James.
All right. Thank you very much, Paula.
You're welcome.
No doubt. Well, I brought this specific topic up because like Paula said, I knew that there were things missing in my spiritual life personally, and then so I started to do a little bit of digging, and so I ran across a lot of information specifically on African spirituality. Now, I know all of us, not all of us, but most of the people here, black people here in America, and all along South America and the Caribbean, were brought there through the transatlantic slave trade. And so that's why I really started focusing on African spirituality, but even more so on West African spirituality. When I first got into this, and I started with Egypt and started learning a little bit more about that, and that really woke me up and opened my eyes to the possibilities and the wonders of what our people are actually capable of. And from there, I'm going to continue this, starting with how the people from out of Egypt migrated from the east or northeast of Africa towards the west. And that's basically through the invasion of outsiders coming into the land because of what they had. So I'm going to read this little passage here, right? And let me explain a little bit more. So the people were later known as the Yoruba people, right? That went through that migrated west, and then they started their own. Well, they reawakened the spiritual system, kind of changed the names because things change whenever you go from place to place, and you can see that here in America. The dialect changes, the words that people say is different, and that's pretty much what happened when you migrate over all these years. So
and then in the process, I'm sorry, I wanted to add to what you just said. In the process of the language changing and what was going on, we've lost some of the meaning to the actual gestures
like
or meaning.
The nuance.
The nuance. That's a good word. I'd like to thank you, Tiffany. But I just interrupted. I'm sorry. Go ahead, James.
No, you're fine, and you're absolutely right, and that's why it's good to study these systems, and it's good to know what the Western part of Africa's system was, because you got to learn the new before you actually can start to obtain the ancient. Just like, for example, we have Spanish-speaking people here, but we also know that the Spanish language did not start here. It started up in Spain. So the way the people speak Spanish in, let's say, Mexico is different from how they'll speak it in Spain. But it's easier for us to learn the Mexican language before we try to go to Spain, because it's just totally different, right? And that shows you how things change over time.
Right.
Yes.
And it also shows the influence of whatever indigenous people's language traveled through.
Yes.
Right.
For sure.
Right. Exactly. So, I'm going to continue and look at, and we're going to tell you how the Yoruba people migrated from East Africa across the Trans-African route from the mid-Nile River to the mid-Niger. And according to the archaeologist Amalaya, Nigerian region was inhabited more than 40,000 years ago. So this is ancient time. This is long time ago that we had people traveling across Africa, and our influence has always been there. It's never left, and we're just trying to regain that back. So it goes back to 40,000 years all the way to 65,000 BC, right? Where they actually ran into already indigenous people called the Nok culture, right? So, and there's been proof that the Yoruba people have visited there several times from 2000 and from 5000 BC. So the Yoruba group was led by the chief by the name of Oduduwa, who settled somewhat peacefully already and established Ila Ife. Now, Ila Ife, it just means like sacred land. All right, or actually, right here it says sacred people, but I know they use it as sacred land. And during this time,
can I jump in just for 1 second? Whenever you say something like that, that's like not a common word. Can you spell it so that the listeners can have a point of reference?
Yes, Ela Ife. You spell that capital I-L-E space capital I-F-E. All right, so this is where the indigenous people are already at. And at this time, they're already going through their Bronze Age, so they were already highly sophisticated during this time. All right, so, and I speak on this thing because I want people to kind of know yourself. Again, I'm not trying to intrude upon what other people are doing. I think a lot of these systems can work for a lot of people, but you do have to take time to dig into them. But I also want you to see why you do some of the things that you do, especially in the church. How we have people, people dance around to catch the Holy Ghost, or whatever. I just want you to see that we're already doing these same things. We already had people. I guess you can say catching the Holy. It's not really catching the Holy Ghost in a sense, but
like we call it here. Yeah.
Like we call it here, but it's kind of like going into a trance.
But we have
state.
what we have to make the difference there is that they did it on purpose. We do it sneaky on purpose. Like the spirit has taken you and throw you up against the wall and throwing you over the thing and broke your hips and all this stuff. It's a dance. It's because you're actually, God doesn't want your praise if He's got to elicit it from you and throw you around. He has to do it for Himself. That's not. Now, I have felt things in my body where you wanted to jump. A lot of that is just what you feel. You know, it's how you feel. You want to express whatever that you are feeling at that time. But when I was in church, it was like a sacrilege if you didn't speak them unknown. He coming in a Honda and all these unknown tongues and didn't know what. And you're not shouting. That means that you weren't quote saved unquote, which I hate that word, but it is what it is. And that does not most of the people who were doing it were doing such horrible things when they left the church. It didn't make any sense because it was all a game. And see, you make God a game at that point. And I'm going to stop it there. But I wanted to put that emphasis on there because when we get in church and we dance and we do, and there's nothing wrong with the dance. It's nothing wrong with you expressing what you're feeling on the inside. But don't make it seem like it's the Holy Spirit that's throwing you around. Because David said his wife came out when he was out there. They were celebrating something, a war or something they had done, and his wife came on the what was her name? His African wife, but Sheba, whoever it was, came out on the event on the whatever she was standing out watching. So she had to be up watching them. And she says, why are you out there dancing with the commoners? And he said, I could even get more undignified than this. You know, so the whole chapter let you know, or that whole chapter lets you know he did it on purpose. And we need to stop that. We need to know, when we're doing that, we need to be really praising God. And I say that, and I'm going to stop because I know I can talk. So, but you're on the right. You're right in what you had said, James. I'm just reiterating that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But with that trance, you know, they like you said, they do it on purpose, but they invoke certain spirits, whether it's their ancestors, whether it's part of the Orisha. They invoke these spirits to come in because they believe in that particular spirit's purpose. Okay, so with that purpose embodying you are bringing in with that, either that person or that deity brings to you, whether it's a deity of rain or a deity of plant life or whatever. This is stuff that's just. Yeah, you're praising them, and they have sacrifices, and they do all of that. And their sacrifices still have not changed as far as how they sacrifice animals or whatever. This is the same thing that they were doing in the Bible. They would sacrifice animals, or they would have fruit. And these people still do the same thing, and they use blood because we believe that blood is a life force of our beings. So when you see them sacrificing chickens or whatever, the New Testament translated that because the blood of bullocks and goats and all that stuff couldn't take you where the Son could take you. But I'm going to say this because people are like, now, they got getting spooky. No, that's not spooky. I know in the church and we grew up in the Pentecostal church, and I was just there last year. Nothing has changed. But in Genesis it says God spoke, and He said, "Let us go down and let us make man in our own image."
And people want to make it seem like that it was him talking to himself, but it's not. So there are different spirits, and if you go to Daniel when God was speaking to him and told him to start to dig, he was in a dream. This is just figuratively. These are not things that actually happened. These are like dreams that they are trance or whatever. They were in the spirit with God. He said, dig. I want you to dig. And he did, and he said, tell me what you see. Oh, I see the priest there doing X, Y, and Z. He said, dig a little further. You still haven't gotten it. And he was digging, and he said, I see a watcher. And we go over that, but watcher is a sect of angels who watches over us when God says they're looking to see whom they can bless. And we have to know these things. These are different spirits. And we can't ignore and try to make it seem like the Bible hasn't said this. And a lot of times when the people actually wrote it, they weren't really Christian. They weren't in this thing with God. This is something that they're just finding out. And this is why we're talking about it, because the original word that was written came from that continent that we now call Africa, but it's what is it called, James? The original name of Africa.
Cuba line.
Yes, and so we have to. Yes, so we have to understand. We have to stop disregarding ourselves, because this is from a tradition of centuries that they've done this to us, decades, and now we're believing it. When you start to believe the bull crap, because we're not going to God, and because the reason I started looking into this, I started saying, they are talking about us as a people. If you really read in the Old Testament, you will see there, and when I went to Africa, it was like I was living in the Old Testament. And so you have to open up your heart and open up your mind and ask the Holy Spirit to come in and let you know. But go ahead.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. And that's what I want to just show people, is that it started here first. The ideas of religion started right here on this continent, that we know of as Africa. And I'm just trying to give everybody an idea so you could take time to get to look at it. Because if you go off of everything that was in the book or the actual Bible itself, you will feel like you are not allowed to look at this information. But it was written in such a way that you will be scared to look for yourself outside of the Bible, so you can gain a better understanding of what's going on in there. And that's all I ask. I
was saying, I don't even think it's limited to just. I don't think the Bible is written that way. I think people have interpreted it that way, and since people don't want to do their own research, they just want to sit underneath the man on a pedestal and let him speak stuff into them. That is where that comes from, because the people are not taking out their blinders and not willing to step out on their own. And it's the church that is, and I'm not against the church, but it is the church that's giving people that mindset of fear to actually look and acknowledge that this book is incomplete and there are things that are missing.
Right. Exactly.
I agree.
Exactly. So you could tell through the transatlantic slave trade, all through the islands, the Caribbeans, through Benin. I mean, all up the Americas, you could see this style of worship, or the older style of worship, African spirituality, still happening to this day. But because we were put into slavery, we were not allowed to practice these traditions. So what we had to do was hide it. Another thing, especially with Catholicism, our people had to hide our deities through the actual saints, right? Through the saints. So what they would do was, while they were praising the different saints, they're actually secretly praising their Orisha, or their deities, or I want to say their lower deities, because they have an ultimate creator, and then he has what we probably would know as the angels that were sent down here to watch over us and to protect us. So there'll be the lower deities, and so they use them through the saints. So we always had the spiritual system with us, but we have been, I want to say, brainwashed for so long not to look at that information anymore. So what do y'all think about that?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Go ahead, Paula.
No, I was going to say I agree with that. And the reason I interrupt you when you start talking, because I've had these questions when you try to tell people stuff that's in the Bible that they get every day and they don't read. And and I'm just like, well, if you just read it, what does it say? And they have convinced themselves. So sometimes what I had to learn how to do was to go into the Bible with an empty slate, with an empty that don't listen to what people have said in the behind, and you got to pray before you go into the Word. I remember there was a movie, and you all may remember this. There was a movie out, and they were, what were they? They were doing something. They had a book, and it was meant for a certain type of people. Sorry. I'm so sorry. It was a certain type of book. But when the people that it wasn't meant for them to have it, they opened it up, and it was blank. And the people that it was meant for, all of a sudden, everything just came about. All the words were there. The pictures were there. And so sometimes you got to allow yourself, and you got to know if you're seeking God, God will lead you where He wants you to go. And and these are questions, and people, and at first I didn't want to hear it. I remember when I was in Africa and Jeffrey was saying about the gods of this and the God. I'm just like, that's because that's what we were taught, that was witchcraft. But it wasn't. It was straight out of what they were reading as what we would call the Bible now, but what they were getting from their ancestors, and they were passing it down, and they were writing stuff. And so this is where we are, and we're saying this. We're trying to take this step. So when you have questions, when you say something that I've had questions about in the past, or someone has questioned me, I just want to reiterate it and open it up a little bit more.
Right.
So don't feel like
fine.
I'm thank you.
I
just want to, because I'm a talker. Y'all know I'm a talker, but I'm trying to be very, very not to be that. I'm trying to be specific about what I say and what I don't say. So.
No, that's fine, because I kind of wanted to leave it open like that so everybody can get their opinion in. So if you have something to say, absolutely speak it, because the way I learn anyway, I get several different sources from all over the place, and somebody might feel the exact same way that you feel. So I think it's best that you speak what's on your mind, because if there's somebody out there that's feeling that, they might not have the voice to say it. Of course, especially on this podcast, they're not going to have a voice to say it. So just go ahead and speak what's on your mind. So I have no problem with that at all.
Yeah, because I remember saying it's not. Sometimes it's not the. You're not really. It's the wrong question that you get. I remember when I was in London and I was reading something about the blacks in the Bible, and one of the guys there that was there, he owned this whole section, and he saw me reading, and he says, "What are you talking about? There are no blacks in the Bible." And I was just like, yeah, there are blacks in the Bible. And I was just like, it's really talking about us, but we can't see us. You know what I'm saying? Because we can't see past that thing, that cloud that's been placed in front of us. We have to get out of that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And again, this is not to offend anybody. This is just to give you a chance to open your eyes, to actually give you a chance to do some research. Do your own research on it, especially if you're not feeling the system that you're in is really working for you. If it is, great. I wouldn't ask anybody to change what they're doing if you feel like it's working for you. But I also want to. Well, there's people that's out there who are lost, and mainly because they don't. a lot of times they don't see themselves in this information, whether they're either, and I say this for everything, whether they're at school, whether they're at work, whether they're anything, they don't really see themselves like that. So you have to get to a point where you can see that, this happened with your people. A lot of this stuff started with your people. So now you get a chance to embrace something that looks like you, right? Because this whole system is built off of, especially for Black folks, built off of them looking at something else out other than themselves as the hero. So it's trying to kind of change that whole thing around. Right? So,
and I agree with you. But where I differ from what you're saying is I believe that we are the people of the book, and I think that the Catholic Church and people have played with the imagery to put it in our minds that it's not us.
Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. And I'm not saying that, but it's because of the imagery that they can't see themselves in this stuff, and that's what I'm saying. And a lot of people are affected like that. You know what I'm saying? Even myself. Like I can't even when I hear the name Jesus, I think of a scrawny white dude with long curly hair. Even to this day, I can't see it as any other way. Even though in the Bible it describes them as being a person of color, right? So the imagery plays a big part. But when I bring people to Africa, right, there's no denying what the deities will look like or what their people look like. So it puts them in a state of mind where, okay, these are Black people, they look like me, and this is what they've been doing. They've been doing this for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, right? And the system, for the most part, has not changed, even though it does cope with the times as far as how people are living their lives. It doesn't change as far as what you do and the initiation systems and all that stuff, but you can live this you can live this any day of time. You could still live a normal life and still practice this particular spiritual system.
Yeah, and you know what? And people think, as a Christian, I remember when I started this business that I got into.
Hello?
Yes, did y'all miss me?
Yeah,
you can light that
out just for a second.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What are we're holding?
No, you're good.
You cut out for a second, but it's good now.
Oh, okay. But what people didn't, I couldn't, if I spoke about God, their whole thing was they thought that you weren't well learned. That's not what a Christian does. What God will lead, what I found God, He led me to good people. I went around the world, and and I can come back and I can pray and I can thank God for it because He allowed me to meet good people, and good people are few and far between. And the first thing that they would ask me, "Oh, you're a Christian? What are you talking about? You saved? You mean you saved?" I was just like, "Well, if you want to call it saved, you can say that I'm saved." I said, "But I do business. When I do business, I'm doing business, and I wasn't nothing to play with. But we sort of can't separate the two. If that makes any sense, we can't. Because we want to see Jesus as that weak flower child, no muscle in his body man. But then that little weak man that they keep showing us with the stringy hair and all this stuff, he wasn't the one that went up in the synagogue and whipped them all and turned everything over and whipped everybody out of there. That is not going to happen. So a lot of times you have to use your mind, and you have to let God, you have to see things for what they are. So I say that because I don't want to keep going on with what he's talking about. But when I started reading what James has sent to me about the Yorubas and about the different people, and I was just like, and the different gods, that's what I was talking about. And the first thing that went to my mind was that weak explanation that they gave us of God talking to himself, let us go down and make man in our own image. And I'm just like, okay, and people still believe that because they'd rather, because it's easy. It doesn't say that. It's just easy.
I mean, the word, go ahead, Tiffany. I'll finish up.
I was going to say, because the way you said it, it made me look at it in a different light, and it truly is. It's kind of like laziness, if you will, because people are just not. Yeah. It's fear-mongering and laziness together, because you do have people telling you that if you look outside of this book, there's the lake of fire waiting for you. But at the same token, we know that there's books that have been taken out for whatever reason. And they pretended like that wasn't so for a long time, but when the scrolls are found, now you can't deny it because we have the scrolls. But they're still making people feel like, that hasn't been canonized or ordained by the church. So since, that old white man says that it's not canon, then we're just going to pretend like it doesn't exist.
Well, you got to look at it, too, because when you look at some of the more ancient, when you look at the text in Hebrew, they call God Elohim. Elohim is a plural word. So when you say Elohim, why would they just put God instead of putting God?
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Because it's a plural sense. So you, like I said, it's just manipulation, right? Whenever you look at it, because like I said, these systems all spawn from the same place, right? It's just been changed and manipulated to a point where people can kind of take control of your situation, basically. I mean, a lot of this stuff was written for control, right?
Right.
So that's some of the things that you got to look at, because, like I said, when you talk about different deities, and then them coming down to make us in their image, and when you do the research on certain words, you see, okay, well, Elohim is a plural term. You see that it was gods that came down here, not just a single God that created all this stuff. And then when you look at this particular system, my screen cut off. But yeah, if you look at this particular system, especially with the Yoruba system, it just makes more sense when you start to piece these puzzles together. It just makes more sense. It makes more sense to me, and it breaks down things. And I'm gonna get more into that particular part next week. But but this is pretty much why this is for the reasons I named is why I actually chose this particular religion for myself. I'm not totally into it. I am somewhat a practitioner of the Yoruba systems, but the things that they're teaching me about how to respect everything that's around me, from nature to my ancestors, to the lesser deities, to the great deity, which we know as God. Then it just gave me a better understanding of what I needed to know about religion, and it really felt like it was home for me when I started getting into this information.
Right.
So again, this is not to tell everybody that you need to change up what you're doing, but it's just to give you a chance. If you feel like you're lost, you have a chance to look at something else outside. And I want you to know it's more the same than different from the Christian church. It's more the same, but it just breaks it down a little bit more for you, so you can get a better understanding. And also, when you're listening to these stories, especially the spiritual stories that they have, you got to imagine a lot of this stuff wasn't written down until recently. Right. So you have to tell stories in order for the kids to understand and pass it down to their kids, so they can get a better understanding of life. And these parables or these stories will stick with them for eternity. And as you can see, it's been passed down for thousands and thousands of years, right? And it's still here. It's still here.
Right.
All right.
And that's
so
true.
yeah, absolutely.
No, I was agreeing with you. Go ahead. No, I was just agreeing with you. You can go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm almost done. I'm about to wrap it up here soon. But as you can see, from the transatlantic slave trade, it shows that our people have come from West Africa when they're doing when they're picking up people and turning them into slaves. It's from West Africa. So that's what really intrigued me the most, and that's why I started studying West Africa a whole lot more, because I did a DNA test personally, and most of my roots come from West Africa, and that's a whole other story, because some people don't believe in doing the DNA test and stuff like that. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm like, why not? And I feel like if most of us don't have anything to hide anyway, because our blood has been taken as soon as we were born. The day we were born, our blood has been taken. So it's not like they don't know about you, or the people in the system don't know about you. So
exactly.
You know. So I don't know. I mean, how do y'all feel about the whole slave trade in itself? Because I know when I look at like the Caribbeans, and then I look into Cuba, which is huge in the Yoruba spiritual system, and I know it's a strong system, because you got to think about how long have other people tried to take over Cuba and had no success, and these people are deep into this Yoruba system, right? No success. They've been through, I don't know how many presidents here to try to take over that whole continent, but it's a strong system. I mean, have y'all done enough research to kind of look at how some of the systems play out?
No, I haven't looked at the connection with Cuba, but to answer your first question about my opinion on the slave trade, and that how that impacted spirituality. So basically, what in my view has happened, Europeans came and saw this system, and they basically rebranded it like what happens today, to basically make it their own. And through the slave trade, is West Africa, the Ivory Coast. That's where everything culminated. But all these stories and systems came from further east across Africa, and as you say, everything kind of migrated from east to west. So as people moved from east to west, they picked up little bits and pieces from here and little bits and pieces from there. And if you look at some of the places in our Bible, if you look at the actual translations, and James is correct. I mean, there was oral history before there was a written history, so there's going to be some syntax and things that are lost in translation. But if you look at, for instance, the name Hebrew, if you look at the name Hebrew and look at the people that were captured and enslaved, they were known as the Igbos or the Hebos, and all that is just a transliteration. Someone heard something and mispronounced it because they're from a different country or a different continent.
Exactly.
And that's how the identity. Well, that's part of how the identity was lost.
Exactly, because when they came over and they saw the Indians, what we called Indians then, we call them Native Americans now, but they called them Indians because they thought they were Indians from India.
Right. They were lost.
And so, and so we're talking about a people who really, how do I say this and not make it be too political? This is something is in our DNA, and it's something that emanates from out of you to make you want to ask questions, to make you want to go a little bit deeper. And their goal is, because what they don't know, and then if you thought that someone was less than human, that they were retarded or they were ignorant or they didn't have any sense, you wouldn't spend centuries trying to break them down, and your resources and your time, and trying to kill them and trying to make them kill themselves. I'm just being, we have to be real about this thing, because no matter what happens, we can say that they did X, Y, and Z, but we have to say, but God. They would have done it, but God says out of this verse that he had a remnant. And it's not going to be everybody that came over in the slave trade, but it's going to be enough. And this is, God is not going to let his word go and come back void. And so, and And this is funny, but it's not funny. And when we started talking about the transatlantic slave trade, and I thought the first thing that popped in my mind, that's why black people are so afraid of water. It's not funny, but that's something but we respect the water. We respect animals. We respected that there are certain things we couldn't do, and that would put a fear in you. You coming from somewhere and you're traveling a decade, miles, hundreds and hundreds of miles, thousands of miles from where you came from on water, held in the bottom of a ship, and who knew it's probably leaking and everything else, and some of them got drowned and all this stuff. We have to respect that. They died. We shouldn't let them die without saying that this happened.
Right.
We can't go to Germany and talk about the Jewish, so-called Jewish population, and not talk about what happened here, and it's still trying to happen right here, right now.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm done. I'm off my soapbox.
No,
you're fine. You're fine. Did you have anything you want to say about it, Tiffany?
No, go ahead. I said my piece already. I want to. I see you clicking around on the screen. I want to hear what's next. I can hear cursor on the screen.
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of want to go over the creation story, so I can get it. I mean, this is just one of the ODUs, which is ODU. One of the insights on how the creation came about. Within the spiritual systems, and all of them are pretty much the same, but some of them differ here and there. But for the most part, it's the same thing, right? So this is how they speak on the creation of the actual earth itself. Okay. So it says, in the beginning there was only sky above, water, and marshland below. The chief god Olorun ruled the sky, and the goddess Olokun ruled what was below, which was the water, pretty much.
Right.
All right, and this all goes back to the same thing in Egypt as well. When you look at how they did things, they had the chief god, and even in the Bible, how you had the firmament, how God separated the waters.
Yes, that's what I was getting ready to say.
Right. Yeah. Separate the waters. So I'm gonna continue, and I guess we can discuss it. The chief Obatala, another god, reflected upon the situation, then went to Olorun for permission to create dry land for all kinds of living creatures to inhabit. He was given permission, so he sought advice from Arumala, eldest son of Olorun and the god of prophecy. He was told that he would need a gold chain long enough to reach below, and a snail shell filled with sand, a white hen, and a black cat, and a palm nut, all of which he was to carry in a bag. All the gods contributed what gold they had, and Arumala supplied the articles for the bag. I'm messing with too much stuff here. Let me go back. All the gods. Okay, I just did that. When all was ready, Abatala hung the chain from the corner of the sky, placed the bag over his shoulder, and started downward climb. When he reached the end of the chain, he saw he still had some distance to go. From above, he heard Arumala instruct him to pour the sand for the snail shell, and also immediately released the white hen. He did as he was told, whereupon the hen landed on the sand, began scratching and scattering it about. So this is showing you how the land was created. Yeah, so this is the part where the land was created. So he threw the sand over the water, and if you see how hens scratch at things, you know they kick up dirt all the time, right? They peck and they kick up dirt. And so this is how your land was created and spread around through the kicking up of dirt, and all this stems back to like when you're looking at the Big Bang theory in a sense, of how everything is related, but they're just giving it to you in a story form. So all this stuff was already created, and this is where the Big Bang Theory came from, this information right here. But it was put in a sense that a kid can remember how all this stuff was created, right?
Right.
All right.
But we have to go ahead. But I was thinking about the Big Bang, and everything was correct up until the Big Bang. Once they got there, they didn't want to give God credit for creating us, so they would rather that it came from a fish, and then the fish started walking, and then from the walk he turned into this, and from that he turned into a gorilla, from the gorilla to, and they really believe this. These are the same people who believe that the earth was flat. So you have to realize they did not grow up with this. And you want to say we want to make it seem like it's funny, or that it was not on purpose. This was on purpose because they couldn't accept that. And you can you see this. And when I was reading the Bible and I was studying, and these are things that brought up in my mind. David, the King David, was talking. He was talking about Orion, and he was talking about the stars, and he was talking about the earth and how round it was. And I'm thinking, this was long before settlers, and long before they so-called was going over the ocean because they thought the ocean was flat, and they found out it was round. How they found that out, I don't know, because it's going to be level. So you're going to, so how you found out that it was round? And but if he knew that then, long before you came out of the caves, why wouldn't they know this? Why didn't they know that? So you got to know that these are the original people. You know, it's not
and also,
what you want. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, also going back to the canon biblical text, you know, what is accepted as canon. When you look at the creation story, it's literally like a couple of paragraphs. You can't tell me that you don't understand that things are missing. I always said, the first time I ever read the Bible for myself, I was a teenager, right? And that was the first time I said, I'm going to try and figure out, should try to gain some understanding. And I went into it with an open mind, and what I came away with is that Christians today have a God-in-a-box theory. In my mind, they have limitations on what they believe is possible through God. For me, even evolution is possible through God because it was never explained in more than just 2 or 3 sentences. So how can you tell me how God created the gorilla? Maybe it did start from a speck. No, because maybe the Big Bang Theory did happen. That doesn't mean that it wasn't sparked by God's speech.
Yeah, you can.
Exactly,
and that's what. But these people believe that. And I think you can say that, but these people,
I didn't hear what you said. I didn't hear the start of what you said.
Oh, okay. I said you can say that, but these people really believe that. What was her name? Jane Goodall, the one who stayed in Africa down there with the gorillas for
with the Highland
decades.
Gorillas.
And then when I started reading about it, and I'm thinking, now, why is she there? I don't get why she's there. Then I thought, they're trying to prove that the Africans came from the gorillas. And that was what. And when she couldn't prove that, that's when they took her funding away. She went back home, and nobody asked any questions. They didn't say, because she was older. No, because you were spending money, and you can't say that gorilla didn't just die and that he disappeared and became an African. It was something else. And this is something that they have for centuries in their misdirection. We allowed them to misdirect us. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
And
It makes sense, but to me, the other things make sense too. Now, do I believe that we came from apes? No, I don't. That's why there's a quote-unquote missing link. There's a missing link for a reason because there is no connection. But as far as everything else, there's clear lines from, amoeba to, I don't know, turkey vulture. You name it. Pick your favorite animal. There's a clear line.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. Because God called the fish out of the water and told them to fly. And this is in our Bible that we have, and he separated the firmaments from the firmaments, and they have proven that water from all the way from from the North Pole, when it melts, that it goes up and it creates something, and then the water goes all over, and that's how we get water from the rain, and it goes up to the rain clouds, and the wind pushes the rain clouds. There's so much that we don't know.
Right.
Because we're not God.
Because and it goes back to what you said, that word you said, misdirection. That's a very powerful word. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, James. I know you're like not even halfway through your...
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. No, you're fine, because I had my little piece too. Because when you think about the Big Bang Theory, and how it tells you God will speak, you don't know how God will speak. All they know was an explosion. Right, is all they could really tell you was an explosion. When you say when God first spoke, and that's why I kind of believe the Big Bang Theory in a sense. I don't really believe in evolution as far as how we evolve. Of course, I don't think we evolve from monkeys. I do think that we get more and more advanced. But I mean, you can tell from certain birds, that go in different environments how they change. But the main thing that stays consistent is the inside of the bodies. The outside changes, but the inside pretty much stays the same. Like it's the same bird, it's just adapting to its environment. And I believe that we do adapt to our environment. Right.
Exactly. But I do believe that man was created individually and separate from nature and all the other parts of creation.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we were born with a choice.
These are things they took from Africa. They couldn't understand it, so they made up stories for themselves. When things don't when 1 + 1 does not equal 2, it's a lie on the line somewhere. And so we see this because I had to keep going back and reading it. I had to go back and get everybody out of my head. Everybody that went and preached what they did and preached, and what his dad had preached, who was given to from the slave master to tell you X, Y, and Z, and we have gotten so settled that it's okay. When I get real comfortable in something, I know it's time for me to get up and start doing something. You don't want to get to the point that you comfort and your butt is spreading because you're sitting around, and I just feel like everything is hunky-dory. No. So I just think we have to, everything, there's an explanation how everything was created. God didn't want us to be ignorant. That's the thing. It wasn't just like, poof, blah, blah, blah. And we don't know when he created Adam and Eve, was it a grown man? Because Adam was there for a very, very long time before, in the Bible, that Eve was created. So how do you know that he wasn't a little boy and then grew up to a man, and then that's when God realized that he needed companionship. And this is the same thing that's on the walls in Egypt, but they have more explanation for it. And so they just made up stuff to make it seem that, to put different words to what the Africans did and try to make it seem like it was something different, and they just screwed it up.
Right.
So I'm gonna say that, and I'm gonna stop because that would go into spirit into something else. But go ahead, James.
All right, that's fine. I'm gonna continue. Wherever the sand landed, it formed dry land. The biggest piles becoming hills, and the smaller piles valleys. Obatala jumped to a hill and named the place Ifa, or Ife. The dry land now extended as far as he could see. He dug a hole, planted the palm nut, and saw that it grew to maturity. In a flash, the mature palm tree dropped more palm nuts on the ground, each which grew immediately and matured to maturity, and repeated the process. Obatala settled down with the cat for company. Many months passed, and he grew bored with his routine. He decided to create beings like himself, keyword, like himself, to keep him company. He dug into the sand and soon found clay with which he with which to mold figures like himself, and started on his task. But he soon grew tired and decided to take a break.
Mm-hmm.
All right, go to the next one. He made wine from the nearby palm tree and drank bowl after bowl. Not realizing he was drunk, Obatala returned to his task and fashioned the new beings. Because of his condition, he fashioned many imperfect figures. Without realizing this, he called out to Alarum to breathe life into his creatures. The next day, he realized what he had done and swore never to drink again and to take care of those who were deformed, thus becoming protector of the deformed. The new people built huts, and Obatala had done, and soon Ife prospered as becoming a city, and became a city. All the other gods were happy with what Obatala had done and visited the land often, except for Olokun, the ruler of all below, the sky. She had not been consulted by Obatala and grew angry that he had usurped so much of her kingdom. When Obatala returned to his home in the sky for a visit, Olokun summoned the great waves of her vast oceans and sent them surging across the land. Wave after wave she unleashed until much of the land was underwater, and many of the people were drowned. Those that had fled to the highest land beseeched the god Oshu, who had been visiting, to return to the sky and report what was happening to them. Oshu demanded sacrifice be had to Obatala and himself before he would deliver the message. The people sacrificed some goats, and Oshu returned to the sky. When Arumala heard the news, he climbed down the golden chain to the earth and cast many spells which caused the flood waters to retreat, and the dry African land reappeared. So ended the Great Flood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when I hear this, because through my studies I've read like some of the Apocrypha, and speaking, one that spoke to me the most was the Book of Enoch, because it goes into great detail about what moves the winds and how things,
the same thing.
How nature is controlled, and God actually has posted angels to control everything from the wind to the rising and fall of the waters. So when you're talking about these lesser gods, that's who I envision. That is where that comes from. Like those are these are the names, basically the names of the angels that we have been
fallen.
Right, but then these are not fallen, in my opinion. These are not the fallen angels. These are just the angels that God charged to be in control of certain aspects, like the rotation of the planets and stars, the rise and fall of the waters. And one thing I want to talk about, you both mentioned it, and I just didn't want to interrupt before he got through this creation story, because I thought it was really, really intriguing. Whenever they talk about the waters above and the waters below, there's a theory, and I call you guys to take some time and take a look at it, of how science has a theory of how that happened, and it's not biblical science, not just science, but biblical science, and they basically, before there was ever a raindrop, when Noah was talking about this great flood that was coming, people thought he was crazy because there was no such thing as rain at that time.
It's rain,
The waters above was basically what we have now as the ozone layer is a remnant of what was there before. Before, there was a body of water above the earth that surrounded like a greenhouse. Surrounded like a greenhouse. And the Bible said that, the plants were watered from a mist that came up from below. So basically, the earth was all one climate, and it was basically the mist from the greenhouse effect is what kept the earth warm and kept everything watered, and there was no such thing as raindrop. And once, God was displeased with whatever was going on down here on earth, he caused something to fracture so that all that rain that was above fell down below. And that is how the entire earth was engulfed in floodwaters. I'm looking for the name of the theory so you guys can go look at it for yourselves. I thought it was really, really, I had some long talks with my theology teacher. He was upset with me, but I think I came away enlightening him a little bit.
But I believe while she's looking for that, I'm going to make a assertion, because we have to be careful about what people are trying to talk about dinosaurs and trying to do this, that, and the other. But I do believe when you do read the book of Enoch, that because of the angels who decided that the women were fair and they decided to come out of heaven to make man, and that's why they had giants on earth from that point forward. But you go further than that in the book of Enoch, because it had got to the point where the children were so big and the animals, they had usurped everything. Everything was out of order. And that I believe that's where the dinosaurs came from. So when that was, I look at it, because you can't, and all that we can see, pterodactyl, we can see one of those things in the sand areas, and we say, oh, that's what the dinosaurs used to look like. Now they're small. No, it was what God had already created, and He destroyed that with Noah's flood.
Right, because it became adulterated, because the angels didn't stay, because the angels had their specific jobs and their specific duties, and just like birds, they fly in the sky and animals roam the land. It's because that's what they were called to do. That's what God called them to do. They obey every day in and day out. They obey what they're supposed to do. But those angels did not obey what they're supposed to do, and they came down and adulterated it. So that's how this story speaks of deformed creatures. Well, those creatures are deformed because the angels didn't stay in the ordained place. And the name of that theory is called the canopy theory. So if you're interested to look at the canopy theory, that is Christian science actually explaining where those waters actually came from, and using what was in the book of Enoch and other apocryphal works that were taken out of the main canon. Canopy theory.
I agree. Yeah, because don't get me, you get quiet, James. I'm going to start talking. You want me to start talking?
No, I mean that was all I had. So I just want to give people an idea again of what African spirituality is. And like I said, a lot of the stuff is more the same than different than what you would get in Christian doctrine. Okay? But it's not to offend you. It's just to open your mind so you can get a better understanding that we already have this information. And when you hear about certain things like voodoo, or all these different people, all these different things involving witchcraft, it might not be exactly what you were taught it was. Okay, when you see people doing sacrifices and with goats and chickens and stuff like that, it's not exactly the voodoo that you think it is. Okay, It's more of a veneration of either your ancestors. It's a sacrifice to one of the lesser gods, and it's a sacrifice to the greater God. All right, that they're doing this for, so you can get a better understanding. And just like in the biblical text, this is how they were sacrificing to God in the first place, right? And these people still practice. They still practice this form of spirituality today. So it's just something to look at. If it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's fine. And if whatever you're doing is working for you, that's fine. I just want people to have a chance to look at yourself, look at your history, especially black people, to look at your history and understand where this information coming from. Why are you doing some of the things that you're doing in the church? Because you might not have an idea of why this stuff is going on. Right.
But you have to start asking questions. Not everything that your ancestors told you. Well, most of what they told you was not fiction. I remember my grandmother telling us one day, we were sitting out on the porch. We had a ritual. We would sometimes when the weather was right, we would all because we would all sit out on the porch, and then we have all the stories and all the stuff, and all the kids would sit around because we didn't have any stories, but we would listen to it. And I remember a grandmother talking about how one time she didn't have enough money to buy all the food that she wanted to get. She had all the corn and the rice and all that stuff, but she didn't have meat. And she prayed and she asked God for something. And she said the next day there was there was a heavy rain. She didn't say next day, but somewhere in there was this heavy rain. and they were looking. Stuff started hitting the top of the house, and they looked outside, and there was fish out there in the yard. And I'm just like, nah, that's not true. And then, I never forgot it, and I was watching the Weather Channel or something. I think it was the Weather Channel, and they call them water tornadoes. When the water
spout?
And the water goes into the tornado goes in, and it pulls up all that water into it and everything that's in the lake, and then when it goes away, all the stuff that was up in the tornado came back down. And I was just like, that is what she meant. And then they went to say, we found this in the water, and then there was even fish. And I was just like, oh my God, you can't let people tell you that it's not real. These people are talking about stuff, and you got to you got to know what's going on. So I don't want to continue to talk because I'm just this gets into because I would that you all were around and to hear all these stories and all this stuff, and I see things, and it always comes back to my mind, and this is where we are coming, and we don't get together, we don't talk like this. We don't get together and talk to our children. We don't get together. I would see here my parents come to the table, and they would talk. My dad would talk about what happened to him at work and how that he wasn't going to have it, and then he had a friend, Axel, and how they were like thick as thieves, and they did all this stuff. All that stuff I put in my heart. I took it with me. And so these are things I took how they got around the system, because they literally told him they were going to have I just call it NG, the N-word, being over them, because they were accustomed to a white man being in his position. My dad had a doctorate, and they didn't, because he was black, they didn't want to accept that. And half of these people couldn't even read. We had somebody come over our house once, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to leave it. And he came in my dad was asking him how much he was going to charge to come in and fix the walls and fix the ceiling and blah, blah, blah. And so he wrote something on the wall for us and told us what the man's name was, when he was coming, what he was going to do. He came in. We forgot about it. We read it, but we didn't pull it down. And he said, whoa. He looked sideways, and his head went to the other side. He said, that's my name. And I was just like, he can't read. But he on the business. He was doing this stuff. Right. And this is we have to get past ourselves and stop trying to make us dumb. For a long time, I wouldn't tell people what I saw, or I wouldn't tell people what I knew, or what I dreamed about, or what God had shared with me, because I didn't want them to think that anything. I just wanted to be just like everybody else. I just wanted to be whatever. But when God gives you a gift, you have to do that. And so this is what we're talking about. And for those who have eyes, see. And those who have ears, hear. Because like Jesus was talking to his disciples, he said, they said, why are you talking to them in parables? He said, because it's not given to them the mysteries of heaven. It was given to you all. It was given to the people. Right. And I'm saying it for those who have eyes. They have eyes and they can't see. They have ears and they can't hear. And a lot of the stuff that we're getting out of the Bible, that's what we're getting. And we have to spiritually discern what God is trying to deliver to us. Go ahead, Tiffany. I heard you getting ready to say something.
No, I think we're all on this. I mean, we all came to the same conclusion through 3 different routes, but I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah, but I was just giving synopsis and giving stories that a lot of people didn't hear, that I because I was blessed to hear all this stuff. I'm blessed to witness all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's why. But we have gone 20 minutes over our dedicated time. But I wanted to leave this with you, that would allow your spirit to take over. Allow your spirit to do what Jesus or the Son of God said He sent him back down here for us. And you got to get out of this system and get out of this. Everything is today the world is going to end. Today is going to be a hurricane. Today is going to be that. Get out of that. You got to know that you're going to be safe, and that God is going to do what He's going to do. And you got to even if it's raining, even if it's storming, He's doing it for a reason. Just like I was saying about that tornado that was kicking up that water, and it sucked it up in the sky. And then all of a sudden, when it died down, the fish came down. But they didn't know that my grandmother was praying for me so she could feed her kids. My grandmother had 15 kids, and they all survived, and they all did stuff. They all were doing things. And so I hear people on. I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna leave it because I try not to watch Dr. Phil because I think it's a foolishness. But these people have 2 kids, and they talking about they need somebody to come and help them with their child. And she raised 16. If you raise the first one right, the first one is going to help you raise the second one, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So I'm going to say be blessed, and I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany, who will turn it over to James. But be blessed. And know that we have a Creator, and that that you have a guardian angel, and they're watching over you. And what you do is being recorded. And know this, and do everything on purpose. Tiffany.
All right. So with that, I want to say thanks again, family, for spending this time with us. I hope we were able to enlighten your minds and give you some things to chew on, if nothing else. And I want to say this because I forgot that I had thought this, and I want to say it again just for those who might be listening. Take your God out of the box, because He's greater than your imagination. He's greater than what your imagination is, and don't put human limitations on our all-potent, omnipotent God. Okay, so with that, I just want to say be blessed, and we will talk to you next week.
Yes.
All right. Yep. Thank you. Thank you again, family, for listening. Absolutely. I hope that you learned something from this whole thing. I wanted to kind of put it in a fashion where you can learn information and then go do your own research on top of that, just in case you were interested. And I'm going to end with this. I'm going to tell you one thing that my mentor, who is a priest in the Ifa tradition and also a priest in the Palo Mayombe tradition, he just know that any problem that you have has a spiritual solution. Always keep that in mind. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Yes, and to all those, we appreciate you, and we say good night and be blessed.